All right, folks, right now it is a toss-up. Take a look at this. This is where the CME Fed Watch sees the next rate hike. 50 basis points here. I shouldn't do yellow and yellow. Or 75 basis points here. As you can see, it's 50-50. But here's the thing. When that retail sales report came out this morning, this went to 61%. It shot up like a rocket. The street, of course, really grappling with this. I want to bring in Bianco Research President Jim Bianco. Jim, so the market just can't seem to make up its mind on what the Fed's going to do next. What is it? The difference? I guess the different reads on the economy?
Yeah, I think it's both different reads and different philosophies about the economy. All things being in a vacuum, you'd probably think they'd move 75, but the Fed, especially with the minutes that came out a few minutes ago, seemed to be pushing back a little bit about that. And on the philosophical standpoint, if you have strong inflation and weak growth, does the Fed more pivot towards weak growth, or does it stay fighting strong inflation? And you'll get varying opinions on that all over the place. So that's why I think we're straddling 50-50.
Right.
Next weekend, Chairman Powell speaks at their Jackson Hole meeting, and hopefully he'll kind of settle the score there.
You know, to that respect, Jim, I believe that this is a Fed that naturally tilts dovish, particularly Jay Powell, who had this epiphany about the social responsibilities, call it social justice, of the Federal Reserve and what they could do to sort of spread out prosperity. Obviously, that's failed, but I think in his heart of hearts, he wants to get back there. Does the market kind of sniff that out?
I think it does, and I think you're right. And the intervening thing that got in the way was the Fed saw inflation as being a mortal wound to its reputation. And they had to pivot, and they have to do something about inflation. Otherwise, the central bank could lose all its credibility. And I think they want to believe that inflation is still ultimately transitory. What I mean by that is we had some big rise of inflation, but in 2 years, it'll be back at 2%, right, and it'll be at 2% forever. And this will be a one-off, summer storm that went away. And they could get back to fighting for more jobs and for more growth. But right now, they have to focus on inflation, and they're hoping they're going to see signs in the next several months that inflation is peaking and they could pivot back towards growth.
So you posed a couple of questions this morning that are really important as we watch this market come in a lot since the minutes have come out. You were actually replying to a tweet about the Fed, these minutes being a tool, not just a communication device, but a tool for them to ask. And you put up two things. Is one of those misunderstandings at the big rally in risk markets? Will the Fed use the minutes to throw cold water on a pivot? What do you think the answer is now that you had a chance to look at the minutes?
No, they did not throw cold water on the big rally in the market. And you see that with the way that the market has been bouncing since the pivot. They had an opportunity to say to the market, hey, you think we're going to slow down and we're going to stop raising rates, and markets being forward instruments, they're saying yes, and we're going to rally in anticipation of that. They didn't do that. They said that they're worried that the Fed might over-tighten, go too far, and they said that they'd probably have to slow down rate hikes, and that's all code for Wall Street, meaning we're not going to get very aggressive here on raising rates. And that's fine if inflation is peaking, right, and going away for, right, good. But if it is not, then they're making another mistake.
I got 30 seconds. Then what does it mean for this rally, which has Wall Street torn? I think a majority of professionals think it's overdone, but it's hard to go against the tape as well.
It is hard to go against the tape. I think it comes down to one word: inflation. Is it overdone? And I've been of one that's argued 9% inflation is probably the peak. But when it settles out, it's going to settle out at around 4 or 5% inflation. That's unacceptably high. And the Fed's going to have to be aggressive in raising rates a lot more. And Wall Street will be disappointed. Wall Street thinks 9% is the peak, and it will settle out at 2%, and everything will be okay. So those are where the battle lines are drawn right now. I'm on the idea that inflation is going to stay sticky, not 9% sticky, but more 4 or 5, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, well, again, the debate continues. Jim, it's always great to have you help us out with this stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, again, I love hearing from you, whether